This episode of the Matt Report is brought to you by Matt Report Pro. Head over to mattreport.com/join. It's the #1 way for you to support the podcast and learn how to build a better WordPress business. Join the members-only forum, mastermind calls, and receive exclusive content not available for free in the public podcast. Find out more at mattreport.com/join.
This is the Matt Report, the voice of WordPress entrepreneurship. If you're running a WordPress freelance business selling themes, plugins, or client services, this is the place for you. Learn more at mattreport.com and subscribe at mattreport.com/subscribe. And now, on to the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. Super excited for today's episode, and do you know why? Because I didn't record it. It was our good friend Troy Dean from WPElevation, and what we're doing is something called the host swap, where I'm taking his spot, he's taking my spot, and putting ourselves in each other's shoes and seeing what it's like to sort of live the day in the life of competing podcasters, right? Talking about sort of the same subjects of WordPress entrepreneurship. So today's episode is Japh from X-team, and he's being again interviewed by Troy Dean, and he's gonna talk all about what it's like to be working at X-team. And actually, one of this year's most popular episodes comes from Frankie Jarrett, who I interviewed a few weeks back. That's actually been the most popular episode so far this year. So definitely going to be some good stuff to listen to in this episode. It was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And if you are a listener of Troy, and somewhere in the show notes here on the mattreport.com blog post, I'll have the link that goes to my interview with Jason Cohen of WP Engine, which will be airing on Troy's podcast. So certainly check that out as well. Let us know in the comments, who do you think won the host swap? There was no challenge, but let us know who you thought did a better job. If not, we'll give each other high fives the next time we see each other, probably at Pressnomics 3 coming up in January. Other awesome stuff, of course, as always, leaving the 5-star reviews on iTunes is amazing. It helps folks find the show and get other WordPress entrepreneurs exposed to these stories, which really help, right, in the long run. I get tons of emails from folks who say that they love listening to the show, and it's really helped them get to the next step in their WordPress business. So that's awesome stuff. So as always, iTunes, Matt Report, 5 stars. That's great. Matt Report Pro, right? mattreport.com/join. It's been about a few weeks now since we've brought on Lisa, our executive producer, to the podcast, and she's really helping shape not only the podcast, but what's going on in the Matt Report Pro community, right? So now we've got some resource pages, and we've got a lot of new interesting ideas that are coming down the pipe for the Matt Report Pro community. So that's really fun, right? And if you are a pro listener, just a shout out, there is a a Google Plus group that is private just for Matt Report Pro members, right? So if you check your email, I sent it out a few days ago, go ahead and join that group, because that's how you're going to get some of the live events that we're doing, right? So no more sharing the link in the forum and sort of the back and forth with the emails. What we'll do is just put everything through that Google Plus community. You hit up that group, and you'll get into the live events when I send them out. Plus, you'll be notified and all that fun stuff. Wondering what the heck it is? If you want to go to mattreport.com/join, check it out. It's like support for your WordPress business, right? So you join this members-only community. You ask these questions that you have. That how do I get more customers? How do I raise my rates? What is this plugin? Can I use this plugin on this next project? How do I do discovery? Those kinds of things. And then we answer those questions in the forums every month. We do a mastermind call where somebody takes the hot seat and they join in and they say, hey, I've got this problem. Can the group help me? And the group chimes in and gives them help. It's definitely an awesome experience for those of us running our businesses. So you can check out more of that stuff at mattreport.com/join. It's #1 way to support the show. And then as always, mattreport.com/subscribe. Become a member of the mailing list, right? We send out 4 hours worth of podcasts every month. The advice that you hear is worth millions, right? And it's all for free every month in your inbox, mattreport.com/subscribe. All right, so without further ado, let's get on to the host swap with Japh and Troy.
G'day, Troy Dean here, reporting for the Matt Report, not the WPElevation podcast. Of course, this is part of Host Swap, so if you want to see the WPElevation podcast, or in fact you want to see Matt Medeiros, you need to go to WPElevation.com and check that out, because I'm here this week hosting the Matt Report, and I have with me all the way from Tasmania my good friend Japh from X-team. Hey Japh, how you doing?
Hey Troy, I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for joining us on the Matt Report. Last time we spoke was on the other podcast, but we're doing this host swap thing to just share the love.
Nice. Very cool.
And last time I spoke with you, you were at Invato, and now, of course, you are with X-team, and we're going to talk all about that and learn what you're up to. Now, I must just say, these headphones, I was hoping they would work for this episode because Matt always wears headphones, but they're not going to work because if I have the audio coming through these headphones, then I can't record it. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to lose them, and they'll just be a prop. That's better. Now I can hear the world again. I don't know how he spends so much time under those headphones. It's weird in there. All right, let's start with the 2-minute warning or elevator pitch of how you started with WordPress and when you knew that this was something that you were going to do ongoing. When did that happen?
Sure. So that would have been probably about 2007, I think. I was working for a really small startup web agency, and we were building things on Cake PHP at the time as the framework, and so we did quite a bit of stuff on that and some web applications. And I think we had 4 devs, and there were some of the not small, but trainee kind of guys. I thought, this is so silly getting them to learn Cake PHP and take all this time to build a client site. We need something that gets us that much further out of the box. Why not take advantage of some open source systems? So we started playing with WordPress, and basically, full convert since then. I now use that to build web applications and have worked at a couple of other agencies since then where I came in and went, what are you doing with your custom CMS? This is madness. And let's use WordPress. And we switched to WordPress there as well. So, yeah.
Did you go down the whole kind of Drupal, Joomla, Mambo, Magento, whatever it was at the time, and then settle on WordPress, or was WordPress the thing you started using and then just stuck to it?
Yeah, well, actually, the next agency I worked for, they also had a custom CMS, and I said, it was built on a custom framework as well, and I said, guys, this is crazy. If that one guy over there in the corner carks it, we're in big trouble. So how about we use a different framework to build the custom CMS on?
Carksit is Australian for dies, by the way.
Yeah, gets hit by a bus. It's the bus policy.
That's right.
So I said, let's use a different framework, an open source one, so we at least have a good basis to go from. And then I thought, wait a minute, we're using WordPress for this stuff. Why don't we just use WordPress and be done with it? And I got a little bit of resistance with people just going, well, why WordPress? There's so many CMSs. And so I said, okay, that's a good point. I haven't really investigated the others, so let's do it. And we made a list of probably the 10 most popular at the time. And then we narrowed them down on a few different sort of factors, things like market share and documentation, community, stuff like that. And we got down to, I think we ended up just going with Joomla and WordPress, and we built a client site on each. And we went, okay, yeah, let's see how this goes. We got a couple of devs to do it, and then afterwards we kind of did a bit of a post-mortem on the projects and said, okay, how did that go for that dev? And he's like, yeah, like Joomla does some weird stuff with HTML that you kind of can't change, and there's some table stuff that was hard-coded kind of into Joomla at the time and things like that we didn't like. But the real deciding factor was client training. We found that we trained the client for half an hour with WordPress, and we didn't hear from them for must have been 2-3 weeks, and then they called us up, just really excited, telling us to go look at their website and all the content they put into it. Whereas with Joomla, we heard from the client 2 days later, and the same half-hour training, and they're like, I don't know how to do this other thing, I can't work it out. And then we heard from them again another kind of week later, and they're like, I have just forgotten everything. I haven't touched it for a week, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so in the end, we actually converted that client across to WordPress for gratis, just because we were like, okay, well, we don't want this legacy Joomla thing. So yeah, and that ever since then, that agency's actually closed down. And the guy, I was the technical director there, and there was a creative director, so it was us who was making those decisions. And he's gone and built his own business. He just won a Telstra Small Business Award the other day, and his business is completely WordPress now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you, I think you've answered this question, did you have an aha moment when you realised that WordPress was the way to go? And you talked about client training. and this would have been one of your first WordPress projects or clients. So we've just knocked off Matt's first 3 questions in one fell swoop there. So let's talk about client training, because this is an interesting conversation that it kind of feels like everyone who's in the WordPress space now kind of started out using WordPress, was really impressed by the plugin architecture and the plugin repository, which allowed, rapid deployment of different functionality, and that the interface was pretty intuitive compared to the other solutions on the market. But now it feels like it hasn't kind of evolved at the same speed as other web app interfaces have. And so now there's this real question about, how do we keep WordPress as intuitive as it was when it first started in comparison to all of the other products and services available? And obviously backwards compatibility is a huge issue here. But what's your, do you still find that, getting clients up and running in WordPress, I know you're not doing much client work these days, but, over that course of a few years, was getting clients up and running in WordPress still really easy? Or do you think that it's kind of lagging in comparison to some of the other services or tools available?
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of this is actually newcomers to the scene that are even easier to use. So Drupal and Joomla are still more difficult to use than WordPress, but you've got things like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace and those guys who've come in and drag and drop, and you can get quite far. Even Shopify for your e-commerce stuff, and you can actually get a fair way without needing to get under the hood a little bit. WordPress.com is kind of, in a way, it's the answer to those things, but it doesn't have the extensibility that you have from a self-hosted WordPress. So you kind of have to go self-hosted, and then you get a bunch of extra complexity. I was trying to convince someone the other day who they say, I want to start a blog, and I'm like, yeah, go with WordPress.com, and they're like, oh, and then someone else said, I run my business on WordPress.org, you should go with that. I'm like, no, wait a minute. This is someone who's afraid to turn their computer on because they might break something. Just stay with WordPress.com. You can actually get quite far. And the interface isn't too difficult to learn. It's just when you start getting in the complexities of WordPress.org, I think you get a problem, because themes and plugins just add such a big layer of overhead. The agency that I was talking about before, it was actually the web dev side of things was a side business. The agency itself was actually a national training company in Adobe products. And so we did a lot of training in Adobe products as well as PHP, MySQL, and things like that. So we really, client training was something that we did really well. And it was something that was why, another reason it was the deciding factor for us was it was very easy for us to see what the advantages were on the client training on WordPress versus something else. These other platforms, as they get more and more advanced, it'll be interesting to see if they can maintain their ease of use. Wix and Weebly are a bit more easier to use than WordPress now, maybe, but they're also a bit more limited. Once they get more advanced, will they still be as easy to use? I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting. We're completely off script right now. Sorry, Matt. It's interesting to see. Jaquith recently launched Velocity Pages, which is his kind of front end drag and drop solution to building pages on the front end. As one of the core developers of WordPress, and he's releasing a front end drag and drop page builder. That tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's quite interesting, and you can see even the customizer itself is starting to go that way a little bit.
Do you think, it's funny, I was training a client recently. We launched a new website, and I sat them down in front of WordPress, and the first thing they did, this was 3.8, the first thing they did was grabbed an image off their desktop and chucked it on the visual editor, and of course the image just opened up in the browser, and it was like, well, that's broken, isn't it? And I went, no, actually, that's just the way it works. Of course, they fixed that in 3.9, yeah? Or, sorry, this was 3.7. They fixed it in 3.8, where now you can just drag an image onto the visual editor. But I think it's that kind of usability and that ease of use that people expect when they come to WordPress now. And we know that it's better than Drupal, it's better than Joomla in terms of interface and usability, but it still feels like it's got a way to go to be really kind of stupid-proof.
That's true. And there's more and more people now who are more and more familiar with technology, right? So you have more people who are using technology in their day-to-day jobs these days than you did, maybe, 7 years ago? So I think that's a big component as well.
Oh, you just froze on me. All right, let's reconnect.
There we go. I can hear you again.
Aha, yes, I can hear you, but I cannot see you. There we go. Got you back.
There we go.
Awesome.
I can't see you either, actually.
You can't see me?
No.
There we go. Now you should be able to see me.
Oh, there we go.
I'll just get Matt to edit that out.
Stitch it together.
Yes, about the 11-minute mark. He'll need to do an edit. So the question was, do you think it's because the user base of WordPress has changed over the last 5 years, that more and more users of WordPress.org, the software, because more and more business websites are being built on WordPress.org, that the user base and the profile of the general kind of end user has changed dramatically, whereas maybe 7 years ago they were a little more tech savvy, whereas now, you know, they're kind of almost first-time internet users and they get this website and they have to learn WordPress, and maybe they're just used to using Facebook where you can just chuck an image on your status update, and they're kind of feeling like it doesn't quite work like they expect it to.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's it. Back in the day, you would have someone wants to get a website set up for their business, so they find a local web development agency and they build the website, and hopefully they do a little bit of client training afterwards, or at least they're there to troubleshoot and Q&A afterwards. These days, you can the people are a bit more tech savvy, but not to the sort of that extent that a web agency would be, and so they kind of jump on. Oh yeah, I can download this and I can sign up for this host and I can upload a file, and holy crap, what do I do now? And I've got no one to ask.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk a little bit about X-team. For those that don't know, Japh spent how long were you at Envato, by the way?
Nearly 4 years, I think.
4 years. So you were WordPress evangelist at Envato, which is, of course, home to Theme Forest and Code Canyon and Graphic River and all the digital marketplaces that we love. You left Envato how long ago? 3 months ago?
It would have been the very beginning of April.
Okay. Yep, 3 months ago. And you are now with X-team. Tell us about that transition.
Yeah. So that was an interesting transition. Having been at Envato for quite a while, and being in the evangelist role, I hadn't done a great deal of sort of development work during that time. I'd done some, and I'd contributed to WordPress core a little and things like that. But I really wanted to get back into the development stuff, and I'd been having a chat with Dave Rosen, the CEO at X-team, and he mentioned this product that they're working on called Stream, and it basically tracks all the activity and changes that happen in your WordPress site. And I thought, that sounds fantastic. Why isn't there something like that already? Drupal has Watchdog, and there are a couple of other plugins that do the job, but I didn't think there was anything quite as nice as Stream when I had a look at it. And it was actually a plugin idea that I'd had myself, and ideas aren't worth anything if you don't do anything with them, and I hadn't never done anything with it. And so now I was being presented with the opportunity to jump on board and get involved with Stream there. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to do this, and joined X-team to work full-time on Stream.
Okay, so tell me, I'm looking at X-team at the moment, right? And I'm just trying to work out their business model, right? I'm trying to work out, okay, a guy like Japh wouldn't come cheap to work full-time on a product like Stream. I'm looking at Stream's pricing. I'm going, how do these guys afford to build a team, to put developers full-time on product? Let me see if I've got this right. X-team are like a curated marketplace of developers, or do they all work for X-team?
They all work for X-team. Well, they mostly work for X-team, but it's kind of the way you do employment across international borders is by contract, right? So, they're contractors, I suppose, a lot of them in that regard. Mm-hmm. But X-team is essentially, it's a services business model. Mm-hmm. They have a couple of different teams. There's a team that focuses on Drupal. There's a team that focuses on WordPress. and they're a WordPress.com VIP partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have, there's actually a parent company called X Company. And X Company also has things like another company called XHTMLized, which is like a PSD to WordPress or to HTML type of business as well. And so there's actually a few sort of sister companies. There's also a mobile game development sub company there and things like that. So XHTMLized, X-team, Stream, they're all sub companies under X Company.
So slightly different from something like Codable or Alto, where you post or even the Studio Envato service now, where you post a service and that to get this homepage template designed and developed, it's going to cost $350. It's not like that where you're buying services as products. But these guys do have a large group of developers from all over the world. So where do they sit in the marketplace? Are they designed to help small businesses manage their WordPress sites, or are they designed more for enterprise clients to get some hardcore development work done?
Yeah, well, actually, it's kind of the whole gamut. So there's about 100 people or so in total, I think. Mm-hmm. And basically, a decent portion of those are XHTMLized type people. There's about 16 people, I think, on the WordPress team. And the WordPress team, like I say, they're a VIP partner, and they are, dealing with clients like Fox and various people like that. So some of those clients that are on the website there.
Wow, it's pretty impressive. And so tell me about the product. So is it just you on Stream, or is it how big's the Stream team?
There are 3 of us full time on Stream, and we also occasionally. We'll do a bit of a kind of statement of work and get one of the other WordPress team guys to come in and do a little bit here and there when we need a bit of extra bandwidth.
Okay, so tell me about the. Let's kind of go deep and tell me what Stream is, and then let's talk about. I'm curious about the iteration process on how you, and I think we can apply this to freelancers. We're actually going through this at the moment with one of our clients. We've just about to launch, and then there's a whole bunch of kind of little things that need to keep going. And I'm curious as to how you manage that in a remote team situation. But before we get there, tell me, so what does Stream do, and why should I use it on my website?
Sure. So Stream tracks all the changes that happen on your WordPress site. So that essentially allows you to do a range of things. You can keep track of what's happening, particularly if there's multiple users or if even multiple sites on a multi-site network. You can keep track of what's been happening there. You can make sure you can add notifications and things with one of our extensions so that you can get notified, for example, when thinking of my own history working on WP Tuts. Had a team of editors working on various articles, tutorials, and you want to know, has this guy actually done anything on this tutorial he's supposed to be writing? You can check your Stream activity log and you can see, oh yeah, there's been a couple of changes then, so I know he's actually working on it, or oh, he hasn't even started yet, or he started it but then he hasn't touched it for 3 weeks and the deadline's looming, things like that. It also means that if you have a client site and your client calls you up and says, I've changed something on the website, or even worse, I didn't do anything and the website's broken, I don't know what happened, can you fix it? Like straight away, normally you're jumping into, right, well, not only do I have to fix something, but first I need to work out what on earth they actually did. With Stream, you can just jump in and have a look at the activity and go, oh, they updated this post and I can see that they removed, the featured image off it or whatever, and you can just go in and fix it straight away because you've got that log there. All that kind of stuff. And we're actually working on, at the moment, this is a little bit secret. We've mentioned it now and then, but we kind of aren't promoting it too hard just yet. But we're working on hosted activity logs for Stream. So that would actually mean that even if your site is white screening or you can't access it for some reason, you can still view the log to see what changed. As well as things like if your site is breached and someone's made changes to a whole bunch of posts inserting spammy links or something like that, you can see all those changes. Even if the person's gone back and deleted the stream records, they can't delete them because they're in the cloud, whereas at the moment they're hosted in the WordPress site. So if that's compromised, so's the log.
Gotcha. This is fascinating. I can see that we're going to be using this straight away on WPElevation, not Matt Report. I can't speak for Matt Report, but I think he should be using it.
I think he is.
Is he?
I think so.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. He's ahead of the curve. So this is fascinating. So tell me, some of the questions that Matt has got written here in this interview outline is sort of more about the freelancing business. But I'm curious as to how this works in your kind of business. What is the process for, if you guys, first of all, how do you triage what goes into Stream? So you've obviously got a list of things that you want to put in it, and then you've probably got a list of things that your users want you to put in it. Let's talk about that question first. How do you get feedback from your users and say, okay, that's going in this week, or no, that can just sit on the bench for a couple of months?
Yeah. So the core Stream plugin is completely free. It is on the WordPress.org repository, and it's also we're developing it on GitHub. So we encourage people to log issues on GitHub if they want to. And what we do is on the WordPress.org forums, we deal with support there. If something there kind of has turned into a bit of a feature request, we'll go and add it as an issue on GitHub and tell the person, you can go participate in that conversation here if you want to. Here it is anyway, so we're working on it, even if you don't want to jump in there. We also have things that we want to do to grow the usage of Stream. So we're starting to build connectors, we call them. So extensions extend Stream's core functionality, and connectors allow other plugins to take advantage of Stream's functionality by logging to it. So we've built a connector for WooCommerce, which is out there. So now you can keep track of the various e-commerce things that happen in WooCommerce that WordPress core is kind of oblivious to, right, as far as tracking goes and hooks and things. So some of it is based on that. We say, what would make Stream really useful to people? Well, people do their business on WordPress, and they're going to want to keep track of orders and things like that as well. So we should add that functionality. So that helps map it. So yeah, it's feature requests that come through support, as well as things that we think most people will find useful.
And then what's the iteration process? Do you say, okay, we need to know what this looks like? So if it's something that's going to affect the interface, for example, do you just develop that on a development environment and see how it looks out of the box and then maybe do some styling on it retrospectively? Or do you say, okay, well, this is going to be a new part to the admin UI. We need to know how it looks before we develop it. How does that work?
Yeah. So when we're doing new UI stuff, usually whoever's working on that particular issue, or if someone has been, having a bit of a think on it in their off time, they'll do a mock-up of, this is kind of what I think that interface should look like for this. So usually we've kind of said, hey, we're going to have this feature. We think it should work roughly like that. Someone will come up with a mock-up of, how about this? And then sometimes an even more kind of high fidelity mock-up where you can actually do some click-throughs, or like a short video of, okay, here's a not really working but looks like it's working kind of mock-up. And then we can kind of, the rest of the team will give a bit of feedback and say, yeah, well, I think so, or do you think people would be able to use that without having to think about it too hard, and things like that. And then we'll kind of build it, and if we get feedback on it, we'll kind of make adjustments and things after the fact there.
So do you deploy straight to GitHub, or do you deploy to your own kind of development version first and test it internally before you deploy to GitHub?
So GitHub, the way we use GitHub, we have the master sort of branch, which is essentially what whatever the last version was that was deployed to the .org directory. And then we have a develop branch, which is kind of, this is the stuff that's going to be merged into the master branch soon. And we use a kind of git flow method. So if someone has been working on a feature, they've got a branch for that feature. Anyone really, who we have I think we've got about 23 contributors now to the project, which is pretty cool. And anyone who's contributing to the project or visits it on GitHub could check out one of those branches and see a feature that's mid-development if they wanted to.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, it's broken. Well, yeah, it's broken.
Yeah.
It's not even in develop yet.
Just go back to the mock-up stage for a second. Do you have a specific tool that you use for collaborating on mock-ups?
No, not really. I mean, we kind of just use, I guess you would say, the browser. We just kind of, you jump into the debug tools and tweak the HTML a little there and go, yeah, I think it should look like that. Or maybe you've just done it in, I think mostly we just use HTML, CSS to kind of mock things up. There's not a great deal of images in Stream.
And all the collaboration and communication is just done via email, or I know I'm getting really granular here, but this...
We use Slack.
Yes.
Stuff, yeah. So it's just kind of do a mock-up, piff it into Slack, and get some feedback there. Yeah.
Yes. I've been looking at Slack recently, and it looks very sexy.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We used HipChat for a little while there before that, but Slack is really great. Some of the integrations, it's pretty cool. The integrations with GitHub in particular are quite nice. You can see when someone's pushed a bunch of changes or just left a comment on something, and you're like, oh, okay, and then you can jump in and leave comments on it. It's nice to just get those notifications in Slack and not have a million email notifications.
Yeah, definitely. Who decides finally what goes into Stream, what gets merged and what doesn't?
We make those decisions collaboratively where they're big decisions, but otherwise we just kind of go with, there's three of us, Frankie Jarrett, Luke Carbis, myself, and then we also have a guy named Shadi who does a fair bit of work on it with us, and Frankie, Luke, and myself usually will just kind of build something, push it in. We do code review, so when you do a pull request from your feature branch into develop, you say, here's a pull request, and ping one of the others to say, can you just have a look at this? It makes sense. We'll go through it, go, oh, you should probably do this, or, oh, you've missed that, or this just looks brilliant, merge it in. And then we merge it in. Sometimes if it's a bigger thing, then we might go, oh, let's just have a quick chat, and we'll jump on Google Hangout or something like that and talk something through where you got a little bit sort of higher bandwidth communication than typing stuff out.
Yep.
But mostly we're a pretty close group. We keep in contact pretty much all the time, almost constantly on Slack, so that we have a good feel for these kinds of things as we're building them as well. So we've got a good rapport and good trust within the team.
Quick question on development. How do you keep your chops up as a developer? Do you have a particular place that you go to learn? Do you have using CSS preprocessors or whatever it is? How do you go, okay, I need to get my head around this. I have one place that I go to learn this stuff all the time.
Yeah. Well, so lately, the last 3 months, I've been mostly working on the cloud side of Stream, and that's built on a Node.js application. And so I've had to get my Node.js chops up to speed pretty quickly. And most of the way I've done that is through Node School, actually. I'm just kind of reading generally online. Did a couple of tutorials here and there, but a lot of reading documentation, a lot of trawling through the Ghost code base, actually, to kind of go, what are they using for integration testing, or what are they using as their templating language here, and that's great actually, because they have sometimes big GitHub threads on discussing whether to use this or that for a particular solution. Like at the moment, they're rebuilding their admin, and they're like, so do we use Backbone or Angular or Ember or or what, and you get to read this massive thing about everyone pitching in their favorite tool and why, and then how they came to a decision. It's quite good, and then you can say, well, that doesn't apply to me, so I think this one's actually best for me, even though it's not what they chose. Or you say, well, okay, perfect, I'll use that. So I've been doing a lot of that. But Node School is great. Nodeschool.io, I think it is it's kind of like an in-person thing. We had one here in Hobart not long ago. We're just on a Saturday. About 20 people got together, and maybe 3 or 4 of them were sort of Node.js pros, and the rest were people who were wanting to learn. And we went through, it's kind of a self-paced Node application that takes you through learning Node, including tests. So it actually verifies your code and tells you if you passed or not. And you have people there to help you get through it. So after doing that first one, I've actually been spending a bit of time on Node School, going through all the other lessons just myself. That's mainly how I've been getting up to speed there.
You got to love the open source community, don't you?
Right? It's it's amazing. It's great because you can teach yourself just enough to hang yourself. It's excellent.
That's right. I'm renowned for doing that. You teach yourself just enough that you have to go hire someone to fix your problems.
Yeah.
Can you, there's a question here, I love this question. We're not going to understand it because we're Australian, but can you share what is really working for you right now? One thing that's really working for you right now, like a wide receiver catching the long pass. And we're Australian, so we don't understand what that means. But I
feel like this is a gridiron reference.
It is. I think it's like, imagine like the wicket keeper catching the ball as the batsman leaves it. I don't know. What's bad analogy? What's the one thing that's really working for you right now?
For Stream, I think what's really working for us at the moment is paying a lot of attention to the feedback that we're getting. We have the core free plugin, and we're getting a lot of feedback in the support forums on what people do and don't like, or what they'd like to see in it. We have the extension club, and we have email and support forums there as well. And so getting feedback from people on that, what they do and don't like. Even getting feedback from others like the WooCommerce guys or the Gravity Forms team when we're wanting to implement connectors so that we can track all that stuff, and seeing what those guys have to suggest is pretty cool. So mostly it's collecting feedback and chatting about it in the team and implementing stuff. That's working really well for us. Yeah. For me personally, within the Stream team, getting really full on back into development and learning some new technology is my favorite place to be. So that's working for me.
Nice. Do you miss the kind of, I don't know, is this a bigger team that you're in now than you were at Envato, or is it a smaller team? Like,
I guess it is a bigger team in a way. I mean, Envato is like 250 people, but it was me reporting to someone.
Yeah.
Whereas now I have a team of 3, and we kind of Dave is an awesome empowerer, and he basically is pretty hands off, and it's just the 3 of us. So we report to each other, and it's really cool.
So even though you're at a smaller company, you're actually you've got more camaraderie and more colleagues. Yeah,
that's true. Actually, I would have more sort of team communication rather than just kind of talking to people all across the company who don't really have anything to do with my day to day. Yeah.
All right, let's wind your mind back to the days when you were freelancing, and it's really interesting that we're still having this conversation, because I look at X-team, and I think the reason X-team exists is because WordPress has grown so much that companies like Microsoft and, Skype and ClickBank, who are some of HumanMade's customers, and Threadless and Fox and, Twitter. Some of these teams are now looking for WordPress specialists to help them. So the birth of things like X-team and, Crowd Favorite are slowly taking over the world, and HumanMade and 10up are growing at a rate of knots.
Yeah.
And yet we still are asking this question: how do you deal with the $500 client?
Yeah, right. And I think in a way I'm the right person to ask because it would only be someone who did a bit of freelancing in their spare time who would want to deal with a $500 client. And even then, at the moment, I've got a little girl and my free time is a lot more valuable to me than it used to be. So even a $500 client probably isn't someone I would do anything for. But what I used to do for a $500 client was really kind of either just tell them up front, look, $500 is not going to get you very far. If you add a zero, then we're kind of now we're talking about an entry level website.
Yeah.
Or occasionally, if I wasn't getting very far and it was someone that I felt really just needed a little education around the process, then I might do a kind of an itemized, broken down, here's what you get for $500, and then here's what you'll need, and on top of that, what that will cost, and then there's other thing that you'll need, and that'll cost, and break it down so they can really see, oh, okay, so $500, it's not worth, even for them, it's not worth the $500 for what they'll get for $500. And often that sort of client will end up, going with someone that they know instead, and that person builds them a website for $500, and they end up with a $500 website, and they come back to you later, and suddenly they have $5,000 available.
That's right. Yeah. I had this idea when someone says they've got $500 to send them a zip file of WordPress.org of the installation and a zip file of the Genesis developer pack of all of the themes, which I think is like $400 to buy. So I'm like, here you go. That's what you get for $500. Knock yourself out. Oh, and I'll set you up with a year's hosting at Bluehost. Off you trot.
Done.
That's what you get for $500.
Terrible. And that's where you end up with those people who go, WordPress is too hard to use, and go off and use Wix or Weebly instead.
Exactly.
They got a $500 website, and for $500, it's not going to do everything you want.
And I think one of the problems is that because WordPress has grown, and a lot of WordPress consultants end up consulting because they build their own site on WordPress, and then a friend says, "Oh, can you help me?" And they go, "Yeah, can you?" And then another friend says, "Can you help me?" And then someone they don't know says, "Oh, such and such said you can help me," and they go, "Oh, well, hang on, you're not a friend, so I can charge you some money." And then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, maybe I can build a business out of this," but they don't have any business skills, but they know how to use WordPress, and they kind of end up in this business by accident, really. And I think that's just because WordPress is so widely accessible that people, who are half tech savvy can download it and figure out how to use it and then go, maybe I can build a business around this.
Yep, I saw a tweet the other day. I wish I could remember who tweeted it so I could attribute it, but they said that if you Google for developer jobs, and then you add WordPress into the Google search, the salary drops by 30%.
Yeah, right.
And then I thought, wow, that's kind of telling. And I think the problem there is kind of exactly what you said. Is every man and his dog can use WordPress. It's almost the fact that WordPress is easy to use is the problem in that regard because, anyone can do WordPress. So why would I pay you that when I can get someone else who can do WordPress for less?
Yeah, that's right. Oversupply, and so therefore it all comes down to positioning. Don't get me started. If you could go back in time, 1 year, 5 year, or 10 years, what are the key ingredients, or what is the one thing that you would do differently if you were starting out again? And I guess this is, advice for someone starting out now who might look to you and say, wow, you've had this amazing journey and this great success and ended up working with Envato and X-team and, you're known in the WordPress space. If I'm starting out, what's the one thing that I could do now to kind of fast track my efforts?
I don't know if there's too much that I would change, other than maybe getting underway a little sooner. Yeah, actually, that's probably what I would do. My first job was IT support for the local city council, and I did that for 5 years. And in hindsight, I would get out of that sooner. Yeah. Maybe after it was kind of good because there was, the typical council worker image you have in your head is a guy leaning on a shovel instead of, doing some digging with it, right? So I I'm not going to lie, there was a bit of free time to kind of do your own thing a little bit at the council, and that's probably where I managed to teach myself a lot of PHP. So really, I didn't waste that time. I put it to good use by learning PHP and building utilities that we used in our job and in various web technologies, training other people in how to use PHP, so they have quite a few PHP tools there now. So I probably didn't waste it, but I probably could have got out of there sooner and started, down a proper sort of full-on web development path. Yeah, but one of the things that I love most about what I have done is early on when I was freelancing, spending a lot of time, I considered my marketing budget, and I think I've mentioned this to you in the WPElevation one actually, but I considered my marketing budget to be time I spent on during the day on Twitter helping other people. And if it was kind of, if I could fix your problem within half an hour, then it was free. The idea just being you get known for being a helpful guy. And then when people want something serious done, they go, well, I'm going to go to the helpful guy because I know that I can communicate with him and I know that he knows his stuff and can get my problems sorted. And if this time this is a bigger problem, and I'll throw some money at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? But but it's something that requires a little bit of thought to execute.
Yeah, particularly when people have this perception that Twitter is where you tell people what you're having for lunch. And I'm like, well, really? Twitter is what's paying for my lunch. So
yeah, that's right. I had that client say that to me recently, a manufacturing client said, we're never going to use Twitter because that's what people just use to show what they're having for lunch. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this, but you're following the wrong people on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Doing it wrong, for sure.
Do you have a particular weakness that you think is offset by being a part of the WordPress community or using WordPress software?
Yes, definitely. There's an Albert Einstein quote, and I'm going to massacre it, but it's
Excellent.
Something along the lines of, I don't bother remembering stuff that I can easily find in books. And I love that quote because my memory for those kinds of details is terrible.
Yeah.
I can remember a phone number that someone gave me 5 years ago because it's useless to me now, but I can't remember necessarily how many parameters go in the WP remote request method off the top of my head, or what order they are, or those kinds of things. I mean, maybe that particular one because I used it recently, but that kind of thing. So having the excellent documentation and community available means I don't need to remember nitty-gritty details like that. I just know where I can find it easily and I know how to use it once I get there.
Yeah, awesome. Here's a question that I want to ask. It's got nothing to do with the interview at all, but what do you use a code repository? Do you use like a particular place online where you store your code snippets?
Code snippets? No, I don't really. I probably would just use gists on GitHub if I did.
Yep.
But really what I would like to do is, and I'm sure, so I use the Atom code editor from the GitHub guys.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure that has a snippets. Yeah, that does. It has a snippets thing. But I wish that had a little bit, maybe it does, I just haven't investigated this, but if that had a bit better integration into gists, I'd probably use that a bit more. But snippets aren't something I use that often, to be honest.
And what about when you share you share code snippets with your remote team?
Yeah, then I use gists if it's something that's fine to be public. Otherwise, Slack actually has a built-in kind of snippet collection and stuff like that, and you can choose even who within the team to share it with and stuff like that. So
really,
snippets in Slack is pretty cool.
Right. Well, that just strengthens the argument for Slack, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get Slack integrated here, but I'm fighting an uphill battle, I think. One of the things is I get distracted by shiny widgets all the time, and my business partner's job is to stop me getting distracted by shiny widgets. So,
yeah, you really got to make a case for it when you find one that's actually worth pursuing then.
What's your one gripe about WordPress, and how can we solve that gripe or improve that gripe?
Ooh. I don't really have any particular gripes about WordPress. I think, anything that I would say is just a growing pain that's sort of being worked through anyway. Like some of the stuff you mentioned earlier, I suppose, in terms of keeping up with people who have slightly simpler interfaces or more accessible interfaces for newcomers. But that's stuff that's actively being worked on in Track and in WordPress core. So I'm not worried about it to the point of wanting to gripe. I think WordPress is pretty good. I think that the community around WordPress and the devotion to backward compatibility, while it can throw up some challenges, honestly, it's one of the big reasons why I would want to choose WordPress over something like Drupal or things like that. You get a client who updates Drupal or Joomla across a major version, that's going to be a problem.
There's some interesting chatter going on over at chrislemmer.com at the moment about backward compatibility, specifically around advanced custom fields, which we won't go into here, but it's an interesting conversation, which I've contributed to. But yeah, the whole. I spoke to Gary Pendergast about this at a WordPress meetup in Melbourne recently, and the whole backward compatibility thing is, do you think that's the reason why that the admin interface is kind of not able to evolve as quickly as some people would like it to?
I think that might have been the case historically, because the release schedule was a little bit further apart, and when you have to maintain backward compatibility, then things that change need to happen over multiple versions so that you have a path to keep that compatibility. But now that we're doing these feature as plugin and the development cycle has sped up a little bit, I actually don't think that's a big deal anymore. And I think that we, as a community and WordPress core, is better able to sort of move forward with even things that, something that might happen in version 4.2 isn't compatible with 3.8, but if you grow through 3.9, 4.0 and 4.1, it's been worked out across those versions and you're there.
Do you have any idea how many people kind of skip updates? I mean, I know that the auto update feature now should be preventing a lot of that, but do you have any idea how many people would go from like 3.6 to 3.9 without going through the 3.7, 3.8 cycle?
Well, yeah. I mean, the auto updater handles that, but I suppose if someone did a manual update, I don't know whether that might undermine it to the point that it breaks. No, I don't. I suspect a lot, actually, because you get a lot of hit and run web developers who come in, build a project, and then leave their client, and then a couple of years later something's broken, and the client finds another web developer, and that web developer comes in and goes, "Oh, you're out of date," and updates them, or various things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened relatively often, but I think it's a testament to WordPress that you don't hear about it that often because it handles it.
We get that quite a bit, actually. We get asked to come in and rescue projects that are, been sitting there for 3 years and haven't been updated. And, the first thing we do is take a copy of it, put it on a staging environment on the same host that the live, site is on, update it, see what happens before we even make a decision about whether or not, we can help them.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a fair bit of that. And that's something, incidentally, that the X-team is really, really strong on, is the after project relationship with the client. There's a big emphasis on that within X-team. And that's really good to see from my point of view. Having worked for a number of agencies before and knowing that even at those agencies where maybe I wasn't in a position to do anything about it, we didn't necessarily do very well on the after project support. And so, X-team is fantastic at that. And I would hope that all agencies are working towards it.
It's critical, and it's a great way of getting new clients, getting referrals by keeping your existing clients really super happy and managed well.
Exactly, and even just ongoing income, or if you keep that client around, then when they come to do their website refresh in 3 years or less, you're right there. And why would they go with anyone else?
Yeah. But before we get into the lightning round, where should people start out looking to improve their WordPress skills? If someone, has been doing some theme customization, but they want to kind of get their feet dirty and they want to skill up as a WordPress developer, where's the best place to start?
Sure. There's a couple of places that
now that you're not working at Envato, you can.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say some of the content, particularly Tom McFarlane's content on Tuts Plus, is fantastic. I also really love what Brian Richards is doing with WP Sessions, and having chatted with him fairly recently, WordCamp Miami, about some of the direction that he has with that. They're really exciting things happening there, and I think that's going to be a super strong educational resource.
Do you think people should go looking for what they need to do right now, or do you think they should go looking to kind of broadly skill up and know what's possible? Because I think most WordPress developers skill up in a reactionary way. They kind of go, well, I've got this problem, I need to know how to fix it. They go Googling around, they find the answer, and now, okay, I know how to do that. But they don't go looking in general for, I need to know how, I need to know actions, hooks, and filters. I should just learn that stuff so that I've got it in my toolkit.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I love the content that Tom McFarlane puts together, because he mostly comes at it from a point of view of, you need to know how to do some hooks and filters. Well, here's 3 tutorials that take you right through understanding hooks, actions, and filters, or the settings API. I think it's like 8-part tutorial taking you through the settings API, and there's some stuff on the theme customizer, and I just love his kind of end-to-end 101 in-depth stuff on a feature. Yeah.
Tom
that's
McFarlane,
definitely the way to go.
Get Matt to stick that in the show notes. All right. What's in your toolbox? What's the one piece of software besides WordPress, hardware or otherwise, that you need to run your business, like an Evernote or a Gmail or an iPad or a Slack or...
Probably Git version control. You can't really not have version control. That would be madness.
You can, Japh. You can.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't, but you can.
You can, but you can't. Yeah, exactly. It's I remember. I just think back sometimes to the days when before, when I was really, really, really green and was going, not having any version control, and I was super paranoid even still. But I have multiple directories. I'd go, well, I'm going to do something kind of crazy here. I'm going to make a copy of that directory and then keep working. And I'd end up with these just orphaned copies of old versions of code. So version control is amazing.
Yeah.
Mostly I travel a bit, and as long as I have an internet connection on my laptop, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I just have my code editor. I use Atom, like I mentioned before, which I love. I love the integration with Git that it has. You can actually see in the file which lines you've changed, which lines you've added. In the directory tree, you can see which files you've added or changed as well, and things like that. It's nice to have a bit of a snapshot of what's going to happen or what you're currently working on. Really easy to jump to the point you're currently working on because it's where all the highlighted changes are.
This is the text editor from the guys at GitHub, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Atom.io, atom.io. I'll get Matt to stick that in the show notes. All right, lightning round, where I ask a series of quick questions and you answer them in 10 seconds or less. This should be pretty easy. What's the one plug-in, apart from Stream, you cannot live without?
Let's come back to that one because that's a really hard one.
Okay. A favourite WordPress or business book?
I really like the WordPress plugin developer Bible that Brad Williams and those guys wrote. I got given a copy as a prize, I think it was, from WordCamp Gold Coast in 2011.
Oh, yeah.
And that's been great. Really good. I mean, it's a little out of date now, but it's the general concepts and stuff are fantastic.
Cool. A quote you live or run your business by?
I really like the quote I can't even remember who to attribute it to now, but it's the any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I love that because you have to think about that sometimes when you're talking to people about WordPress. To some people, WordPress is magic.
And we are magicians.
Exactly. And they're like, whoa, how did you do that? And it's like, just a reminder to simplify your explanations when you're talking to someone.
What's the best business or career advice you have ever received?
My wife telling me to leave the Hobart City Council and take the web development job I'd been offered.
Good on her. Awesome. What's the longest that a client project has ever taken back in your freelancing days?
Oh.
Have you got any still going?
No, but there was one massively long one, and it actually ended up in the project died. The client ran off and had to cut our losses, and that must have gone for over a year, I would say.
Wow, only a year?
Yeah, not too bad, hey.
That's nothing,
But it was a significant... I was freelancing, and that was a significant loss in financial terms.
Yeah, bummer. If you had to switch to another CMS, what would it be? Good answer. The one plugin you cannot live without besides Stream, I'm going to come back to that question.
Yeah, besides Stream, it would be the JSON REST API.
Okay. Very good.
I'm doing a lot of work with that right now.
You really are a developer nerd. I wouldn't even know how to use it. Who should I interview next, or who should Matt interview next?
I would love to hear from Brian Richards about WP sessions.
Cool. Well, I'll find out if he has been on the Matt Report, then I'll get him on WPElevation. If he hasn't been on the Matt Report, then I'll get Matt to get him. And what's the one question I didn't ask you that I should have?
If I could have any superpower, what would it be?
Japh, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I'd love to be a changeling. I think that would be really cool. I used to watch a bit of Star Trek. Yeah, I really am a geek. Deep Space Nine, and there was a character on there called Odo, and he could change into anything. He could be like a glass on your table, or he could be your table, or he could be a bird. And I just think that would be the best superpower.
Wow. I think I want to be invisible if I could have a superpower.
Yeah, see, the thing about a changeling I like is you can go, you know what,
invisible.
I'd like to fly, so you could be a bird. Or I want to swim, you could be a dolphin. Or you want to kind of be something useful. Someone goes, I really wish I had a chair right now. You could be a chair.
Chair. What's the if you were a changeling, what's the first thing that you would change into?
Oh, the first thing, bird, yeah.
A bird.
I quite like birds, and I'd love to fly.
Fly.
Yeah, I'd fly down to the water and then I'd change into a dolphin. Go down there.
Very nice. Like a human hovercraft, a human transformer. It's a truck, it's a robot. What the hell is it?
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much for spending some time with us on the Matt Report. Of course, my name is Troy Dean. I'm from WPElevation, but I'm reporting for the Matt Report this week as part of Host Swap. Matt is over on our podcast interviewing Jason Cohen from WP Engine, and I am here with Japh from X-team and Stream. Thank you very much for spending some time with us, and keep in touch, man. I wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks.
Cheers.